2 chapters on China in the book. I was a China correspondent in 1985. I was the first Beijing correspondent for the paper, and China has been a very big part of my life. Christianity in China is one of the most incredible success stories of Christianity in the last 100 years. When the communists came to power in 1949, there were 3 or 4 million Christians. Now in China, there is somewhere between 60 million and 120 million. For reasons I outline in the book, it's a bit hard to get a precise number of Christians. About 10 million Catholics, about the rest would be the church movement, a sort of evangelical Protestant church, house church movement. Now, they have at times suffered astounding persecution. It began badly in the 1950s. In the Cultural Revolution, priests and nuns were put in cages, put in cathedrals for public mockery. Since Xi Jinping came to power, there's been a great tightening of suppression of Chinese Christianity. To be fair, there's also been suppression of all other religious groups in China, not only the Muslims in Xinjiang, but even Buddhists. Buddhists are being required to put pictures of Xi Jinping in their temples and so on. But I argue a slightly radical case in the book, which is that the Communist Party of China itself is a religious organization. And communism in the 20th century was, in a sense, a religious movement. So the Communist Party of China hates Christianity, partly because it offers an alternative explanation of the human condition. And it appeals certainly to marginal people, but it appeals also to well-educated, clever, successful people in Chinese cities. And the Communist Party really finds this very threatening and distressing. Now, just very briefly, what do I mean when I say the Chinese Communist Party is essentially a religious organization? The CCP tries to offer a complete explanation of human life. It's not a political organization in the normal sense of politics. It also has its own dusty metaphysics, and it has what it regards as an eternal doctrine and then a specific Chinese application. So its official ideology is Marxism, Leninism, Mao Zedong thought. And Marxism, Leninism, if you like, is the eternal teaching, which is only very slightly about economics. It's mainly about state power and the Communist Party being the engine of history. And the specific application is Mao Zedong thought. That's the way you apply these eternal doctrines to China. It's very scriptural. It has its own sacred scriptures, and it has a very scriptural approach to those. It also sees as one of its central purposes giving existential meaning and purpose to the life of Chinese citizens. So the purpose under the CCP is that you further the party, you further the nation, and you complete the proletarian revolution. And then along comes this Christianity, and again, its universalism is very disturbing. It's not nationalistic. It doesn't fit into any political category. It's not representing the landlord class or the proletarian class. It's not geographically specific. And it challenges the dusty metaphysics and metaphysical aridity of the Chinese Communist Party, and the Communist Party can't control it. There are some wonderful historical echoes. I recall some dialogues between the emperor in the 1750s and the Jesuit missionaries who were there. And of course, it also recalls St. Paul's experience in the Acts of the Apostles, where at one point in Greece, he's accused of preaching foreign gods. And this, in a sense, is what Xi Jinping is trying to label Christianity as a foreign religion, whereas, of course, it's a universal religion. So I think Chinese Christians, so I interview a couple of Chinese Christians clandestinely through secure phone lines, and I interview a former Singapore minister who is culturally and ethnically Chinese. And I think Chinese Christians are incredibly inspiring. We should sort of celebrate their story and offer them whatever meagre assistance we can. You know, I had a great friend, an English academic, Audrey Donathorne, who used to smuggle Bibles into China at a time when Bibles were suppressed. And she'd go into China, and she's a wonderful Margaret Rutherford-style woman, and she'd have Bibles in Chinese secreted about her person, and the border guards didn't know what to do with her. And she made her whole life really helping the church in China. And this is a wonderful story. If we feel a bit discouraged in our society, we should look at Chinese Christians and look to their example.